"This is James," my wife's father announced, lifting his wine like a coronation chalice. "He'll be perfect for your position at the company after you're laid off and divorced." The laugh track cued on command. Gloria's high-pitched giggle, Miranda's wine-soaked cackle, Richard's thunderclap guffaw. All eyes slid to me, waiting for an explosion. Instead, I buttered my roll. "How nice," I said, calm as a lake. "James, did they mention the company is in my name?" "And the prenup." Gloria misfired a sip and choked. The room stalled. James, Harvard haircut, catalog suit, shifted like his chair had grown spikes. "Let me back up." Christmas at the Pemberton mansion looked like Martha Stewart had panic-bought a Hallmark store, mistletoe like invasive ivy, a tree that needed its own zip code. Gold everything. You could smell the money and the contempt before the valet shut your door. Gloria had been weirdly sweet on the drive over. That was my first hint something was off. When a spouse who's treated you like a scuff mark suddenly acts sugary, check your pockets for missing silverware. Richard sat at the head of a mahogany runway long enough to land a helicopter. He wore that country club smile sharp enough to cut fingers, the look of a man who loved the mirror and the microphone equally. Miranda, Gloria's sister and full-time cautionary tale, had started Christmas early. Glass 3 of whatever kept the edges fuzzy. And then there was James, the handsome placeholder, the pre-packaged replacement. Richard did his intro speech. Harvard, family connections, vision. The word "our" got a heavy workout, as in our company, our legacy, like he'd forgotten whose signature sits on actual documents. Then he lobbed his grenade. "After you're laid off and divorced." They waited for my temper. I gave them silence and a slow chew. You'd be amazed how much power lives in a quiet bite of bread. "James," I said, "did they mention the company was incorporated 3 years before I met Gloria? That every share, the patents, the HQ deed are in my name? That the prenup classifies those as separate property?" You could feel the thermostat drop 10 degrees. Miranda stopped mid-sip. Richard's color cycled from smug pink to eggplant. "Ignore him," Gloria said, regathering her smirk. "He exaggerates when he's cornered." "Cornered?" I smiled. "Let's be specific." I placed my napkin down, as if we were about to discuss the weather. "When you say our company, Richard, do you mean the business I started above a Chinese restaurant with my grandfather's grub steak? The one I scaled by answering my own phones, cleaning my own floors, and reinvesting every dime until you noticed the profit and suggested a strategic partnership?" Richard's jaw tightened. "He's a talented actor, but he's never been good at playing humble. What you brought," I continued, "was overhead. A high-rise lease, yacht club lunches, and an expense account that needed its own flotation device. What you didn't bring was equity, and that was intentional." James frowned. Smart kid. Gears were turning. The pitch he'd been sold, smooth succession, gracious transition, wasn't matching the paperwork I was describing. Gloria leaned into her weaponized sweetness. "James graduated summa, wrote a revolutionary thesis, has growth capital connections. He's visionary. We need someone willing to take risks." "Ah," I said. "Risks. Like charging a 42-foot Sunseeker to mobile client meetings in a region where we have 0 clients?" Miranda choked this time. "Daddy said that boat belonged to the Weatherbees." "No," I said gently. "It belonged to the company. Past tense. You'll be interested to learn the marina seized it this afternoon. Paperwork moves quickly when ownership is clear." Richard finally barked. "You can't do that!" I tilted my head. "Richard, I'm the majority shareholder and CEO. I can and did." I wasn't done. Also interesting, $47,000 in client wine, your home seller inventory, bought on the corporate card. 3 country club memberships, $68,000 a year, at clubs our actual clients do not attend, and $30,000 monthly advisory fees you paid yourself while spending more time on the back nine than in boardrooms. Silence grew a gravity well. James stared at his lap like it might open into a chute to freedom. Miranda's mascara blinked Morse code for "we're cooked." Richard tried the old bulldozer voice. "The board approved." "The board approved what you told them," I said. "The accounting software recorded what you did. And since I own the company, my counsel and some federal friends have been reviewing. They don't love creativity with other people's money." Gloria's veneer cracked. "This is insane." You can't destroy our family because you're having a midlife crisis. This is our life, our money, our future. Your money? I asked softly. Gloria, you haven't earned a dime since you retired from retail after 2 months because the hours were hostile. Your most profitable year was reselling handbags at a loss because you forgot shipping. Miranda found a new pitch. What will people say about the family? Less than the IRS, I said. And far less than the FBI, if it comes to that. James stood finally. I think I should go, he whispered. This seems private. Gloria spun on him, streaks down her cheeks. We had an agreement. You were going to... To what? He said, spine locating itself. Participate in a takeover of a company owned by the person sitting right here? I may be ambitious, but I'm not stupid. He left. Smart kid. The room devolved. Gloria shouting, Miranda sobbing, Richard red-faced and spraying threats like confetti. I finished my wine. There is a special peace in watching people who've held you in contempt discover you read the fine print. When the loop of threats and catastrophizing started repeating, I stood, buttoned my jacket, and checked my watch. This has been enlightening, I said. Merry Christmas. Expect to hear from my attorneys before New Year's. I walked out to the gentle thud of jaws hitting imported carpet. Driving away felt like a prison door sliding open. Snow fell in postcard flakes. For the first time in years, I noticed it was beautiful instead of inconvenient. I turned toward a brick townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, mine, purchased through a holding company 3 years ago. Investment, originally. Sanctuary, it turns out. I'd moved important things there slowly over the past year. My grandfather's desk, the books I actually read, photos from before I mistook proximity to wealth for family. Nothing dramatic. Just the migration of a life back to the person who owned it. My phone buzzed the second I parked. Gloria first. A rapid-fire rotation of fury, pity, bargaining, promise. We can fix this. Don't throw away what we built. What we built? Funny? Richard followed, threats polished like cufflinks. You'll regret crossing me. I have connections. The kind of connections that wilt under subpoena. Miranda left voicemails that sounded like they were recorded inside a blender. Family, reputation, loyalty. The words collapsed under their own irony. I let them all go to voicemail. After 5 years of answering every manufactured emergency, silence felt like oxygen. Inside, I poured 3 fingers of the good bourbon I keep for honest company, oak and patience instead of price tag and pretense. I sat by the window and watched snow stipple the street. No lectures, no barbed advice, no performative sighs. Just the sound of heat ticking and tires hiss-whispering over slush. Around 10, the texts shifted to apologies shaped like accusations. Midnight brought a lawyer-advised silence. I raised the glass to the window's reflection. My own, a little older, a lot freer. Merry Christmas to me. You might wonder, why did I wait? Because predators prefer shadows and documentation requires daylight. While Richard played patriarch and Gloria played queen, I played clerk. Contracts airtight, trusts layered, assets titled with the discipline of a submarine engineer. Every expense with an audit trail, every strategic partnership with guardrails, every board minute with a recording and a backup. And yes, every curious calendar entry with a follow-up. While we're discussing transparency, I'd said back at the table, let's address Gloria's schedule. She went gray, which matched the truth. You learn a lot from credit card statements when the other holder uses your joint account for motel quality privacy at 5-star properties. The St. Regis was wonderfully helpful when I called about recurring billing errors. Dates, room numbers, room service for 2. Followed like clockwork by boutique splurges that were apparently too delicate for home use. She'd accused me of spying. I'd called it healthy interest, and then laid down the receipts like a royal flush. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about ending the gaslight. Narcissists sell fog. Ledgers bring weather reports. The next morning tasted like fresh air. I brewed coffee without commentary about my poor. I opened emails without scanning for landmines. I answered only one message. My attorneys. Everything we discussed? He wrote, everything, I replied. And the marina has the boat. He sent a thumbs-up emoji, the least lawyerly thing about him, and a calendar invite labeled Petition and Protective Orders. File. While he filed, I did something radical. Nothing for anyone who treated me like a utility. I made eggs. I read a chapter. I carried the trash out once and didn't receive a TED Talk about wheel alignment. By lunch, I'd written a clean, cordial note for our counsel to forward. Gloria, as discussed in the prenup, my separate property remains separate. You will hear from my attorney regarding a settlement for marital property and an orderly move-out timeline. Please direct future communication through counsel. No insults, just boundaries that finally had walls. In the afternoon, my phone lit again. Gloria cycling back to bargaining, promising counseling, recommitting to being the wife you deserve. It stung, sure. History has gravity. But the antidote to gravity is clarity. 3 afternoons a week at the St. Regis, paid for with our joint card, is not a communication problem. $47,000 of Pinot on a tech firm's balance sheet is not a leadership style. A Harvard MBA does not override a deed. I muted the thread. Peace returned like tide. That evening, I drove to the office, my office, to meet our controller and our outside CPA. We locked cards, froze accounts, changed passwords, and scheduled a special meeting for the advisory board. No yelling. Just a checklist and signatures. Are you all right? Our controller asked gently as the last form slid over. I am now, I said, and realized it was true. 3 days later, Richard's attorney sent a letter loud with adjectives and light on law. We replied with exhibits, invoices, minutes, deeds, trust schedules, a copy of the prenup with 4 different signatures, and a notary stamp fat as a medal. Their second letter had fewer adjectives. Gloria moved to her mother's. Miranda called my sister to ask whether Prison Orange was flattering. James sent a short email. Apologies for my role in that scene. Lesson learned. Best of luck. I wished him luck back. He'd need it, but not from me. The board convened. I presented a boring, beautiful deck. What happened, what we'd fixed, and the path forward. We approved a new entertainment policy. Clients, yes. Sellers, no. We closed the advisory consultancy that paid for Richard's golf. We replaced our with the company in all official language. It's amazing how much clarity you buy by eliminating a pronoun. Months from now, accountants will publish a clean audit. Lawyers will file paperwork that fades into the public record without headlines. That's the best kind of victory, the kind that looks like competent silence. But right then, on the first quiet night in my own house, I opened a box I hadn't had space, literal or emotional, to open. Inside, my grandfather's old fountain pen and a note in his slanted hand. Build something that can stand on its paperwork. I laughed. Then I wrote a different kind of resolution. Not a list of goals, just 2 rules. Don't argue with people who think volume beats documents. Butter the roll, then show the receipts. I slept like a man who finally chose the door marked exit. Freedom doesn't roar. It exhales smiles. It tastes like strong coffee and honest bourbon. It sounds like tires and snow and a phone that only rings for people who wish you well. Merry Christmas to me, again. And to Richard, enjoy your dinner. The check is no longer on my tab.